Yeah, good morning. Hope everybody's doing okay. Um, I I have 3 days off, which I'm pretty happy about. Um, I'm not using my phone. I'm using my laptop. I have to get a couple more sips of coffee. I've been thinking. I've been feeling well. I hope everybody that's watching the video is feeling good. My weight is back to being in control. Um, I'm feeling good. Um, I've experimented the last couple weeks with the methylene blue. I bought the Health Athletic version, and I in the hydrogen water. Um, I don't think it's just placebo effect. I think it's actually pretty good. The thing that is worrisome is to make sure that I'm not buying a version that's contaminated. Uh, but I haven't gotten sick uh, physically. I feel good. My shoes are kind of worn out. I'm gonna have to buy another pair of shoes. It's gotten cold pretty quick. Um, it's crazy. I dread the cold, you know. Uh, One of the annoying things about carrying the mail in the fall, especially, is all the pebbles and stuff that gets inside your shoe. Hence the term, I guess, kick rocks. And then the rocks somehow just always end up landing inside your shoe. It's so annoying. Um, so I was thinking about, like, what if they privatize the post office and just the negative things that would happen? Um, let's see here. Yeah, like, it's a theory. Like this shareholder primacy is a corporate governance theory that asserts that the interests of shareholders should take precedence over those of the stakeholders, such as employees, customers, and the community. This theory, rooted in the belief that corporations exist primarily to generate profit for their owners, the shareholders, the concept gained significant traction, particularly following the influential 1919 case of Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, where the Michigan Supreme Court stated that a business corporation is organized primarily for the profit of its stockholders. And that is, I guess, a legal, true case. Um, Setting a precedent. And it's evolved over time. While it's often described as a norm in corporate law, its classification, my eyes, jeez. Its classification as positive law remains debated among scholars. Some argue that it's a foundation principle of corporate governance, while others view it as an ideology lacking binding legal force. The theory has been reinforced by various judicial decisions, which then, if there's judicial decisions, that really kind of um, guiding principle. So, using that, okay, the Friedman doctrine, articulated by economist Milton Friedman, further solidified the shareholder primacy perspective by asserting that the social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. Friedman argued that corporate executives are agents of the shareholders and should focus solely on maximizing shareholder returns, leaving social initiatives and discretion of individual shareholders. So, the idea of business as a social entity trying to better the community, I guess, is probably not the idea, even though that's what it should be. Um, so, tying that in, um, if, like, say, Amazon buys the post office and it's bound to the shareholders over customers and employees, uh, obviously, uh, what would happen? It doesn't take a brilliant economist to understand how bad it's going to get. Um, and I've been talking about it, about how, well, I talked about it from that interview with DeVoy and Rand. Um, when Rand, you could see the disgust that he had when he talked about needing to fix the pension program. And, I guess they voted to cut the postal pension. Let me see here. Fed cut postal pension plan. Yeah, the recent cuts to postal and federal pensions have been met with significant opposition by the union. Well, obviously, it should. Um, the proposed changes including replace the high three FERS annuity calculation with a high five calculation, which would result in a reduction of annuity payments. And I think if you look back at my videos, I've been talking about how they're dying to do that anyways. Not specifically what that is, but obviously, the way that our system has been, if you just look, they're not adding benefits for employees and workers pretty much across the board. I'm not just talking about the post office. That's what makes the post office still a pretty good job, is the benefits that I have currently. Um, a lot of jobs don't have. Uh, and it's obviously it's evolved into a taking away and making things worse, which aligns with profits for the shareholders over employees and customers. Um, these and contribution rate. Well, additionally, new hires in the federal workforce would be forced to choose between at-will employment or paying an increased contribution of 9.4%. So, obviously, if you're going to choose an at-will, that is definitely um, an anti-union thing. Obviously, at will is at will. That means they can fire you for no whatever. How union busting would that be? And I'm not totally anti-union, but really the union isn't really all that helpful for what you pay, for what they do. What are they really doing? Um, they agreed to what amounts to like a 3% raise each year. You know how much a raincoat cost? 400 and some odd dollars, I was quoted, for a freaking raincoat. I mean, they could definitely help us out with how outrageous the uniforms cost. And doesn't seem like they are. Um, yeah, you get in trouble, they'll sit in the room with you, but still, the real important things is to protect stuff like that. I mean, definitely signing an agreement that you're an at-will employee, that's not good, obviously. And ties to the point about how it seems like that's just what they have been continuing to do for the last couple decades, is just remove things. Um, like, yeah, every holiday is an Amazon day. You can be a career guy and you're going to get forced to work. Um, that's the one thing that the union really was weak on, I guess, is this idea of forcing. You have a day off, but they can force you. So what is the point of having the day off if they can just force you? Go through the list. So if you're in a shop that needs workers and they don't have it, guess what? You're working like it or not. Um, so the idea of perks, the idea that over time that things are going to get better for the employee, benefits wise, time off wise, is actually pretty ludicrous to even think that that would be possible when you look at it. And it's pretty bleak when you think about it. Um, that they voted for that, and would they succeed? I guess the postmaster is in agreement with the idea of artificial intelligence being involved. In past videos I talked about, the loss of jobs that are going to come and how middle management and some people are saying that. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not totally off the mark on that. Definitely, there's a lot of middle management that could be cut. Post office um, and privatization, you know. Just imagine though, you're a private company that now owns the post office, and the postal employees cannot go on strike. They would love to be able to have that. Just think about that, dude. That's another angle. Um, Whew, things will get bad, and things aren't going to get any better for the customer. I mean, we are working a lot of hours, and one thing that's annoying is how everyone says I'm late. It's like, no, I'm doing a piece of another route. You get it before the end of the day. It's not late. They don't understand. Everybody thinks you're working just 8 hours, 5 days a week. It's just not true. But it will get worse. And, I think it's going to be just like, what Amazon does. They'll have a bunch of jeepers. They'll have a bunch of jeez. They'll have a bunch of external companies come in with contractors, delivering mail, delivering parcels. It'll be next to impossible to be like the official postal employee that's carrying the mail. Um, and then probably what they'll do is they'll restructure positions and give them new titles and just shuffle a little bit of the responsibilities and probably try to make the responsibilities a lot broader because the postal union contract is very strict about not crossing crafts. So they'll try to like bend that, of course, naturally to maximize the work that they can give the individual. Um, and then with that, they'll apply a new pay rate. And that's how they will cut wages. Hmm. It's probably what they'll do. Um, so things won't get any better. But when you think about like what keeps, obviously a lot of people that carry the mail like the job. I like the job. Otherwise they wouldn't do it. Uh, but a lot of, I think, the glue that keeps employees working, which kind of excludes me because I got hired about, well, off and on, but kind of continually, um, like 4.5, 5 years ago. Um, I am actually a year in Pittsfield in a couple days. So I got, yeah, I'm driving across the country right now last year. So yeah, time flies. Time flies. A year has gone by, and I didn't get fired. Um, um, so yeah, I didn't pay too much into the pension, obviously, because I've only been converted a while, and so it's not like I'm going to have 20 years in. I think I'm going to be able to do 10 years if I'm going to work at the post office that long. Um, I don't have much faith that it's going to get any better. I think it's going to get worse. Um, Time-life balance. I think things are going to get bad. I think it's gonna. Um, I think it's just going to be bad, and I don't have that glue of, hey, I have a pension plan that I paid in for the last 20 years. I've been here for long. I don't have that, so it frees me to have better choices if there is a choice than someone that's invested all their time. And that's the problem is like they view that these pensions are like welfare money, but it's not freaking welfare. You pay into it. It's not free money that you never paid a dime for. Even if you're just going to include your work and your effort, you pay a deduction out of your paycheck. It's not free. And you don't touch it for all those years. So think about it. Your company can take all those deductions and pretty much make money off that money. They can loan that money, get interest back. They can build stuff with that money, make more business, get profit off of that. And then when you're 65 years old, they can give you an X amount for it. Well, you're kind of locking all that money away over time for like 30 years. They don't have to worry about you taking it. It's a pretty good deal for the company. It's not like they're giving you welfare money. So this idea and this disdain that people have for pension people or collecting welfare, it's a business investment, right? As an employee, you're going to invest X amount each check with the idea that you're going to retire and that you're going to get some of that money back. So it's kind of like you're investing. You're an investor. You know what I mean? That's the way I think about it. But people are often F you if you have something I think that's better than what I have, because I don't have that. Rather than good for you, you have that. Good for you. People are often F you. So therefore they have resentment towards people, and they'll allow themselves to think that like that's welfare, and they root against you for making a good wage or having good benefits because you shouldn't. You know what I mean? And that's rooted in how they feel with their situation that might not be so great at their jobs. And so they're kind of like jealous, perhaps, resentful. Yeah. So I don't know. Um, People trade their lives for security, but that insecurity was created for them to begin with. Therefore, now they want security. So they're willing to trade their time and their life for security that was created to be insecure to begin with by the system. So it's kind of it's a mind warp, but it's true. Um, you have to pay to live. If you don't, well, then you really can't live. You're going to starve. I mean, you're not going to be like the Buddhist monks with the begging bowl going around begging for alms at around noontime for something to eat. You can't knock on doors and be like, "Can I have some food?" uh, so, what choice do you really have but to work? You don't really have a choice but to work in order to be able to live. And that's what leads into the rabbit hole of cause, like, how did that all start? It's mind-boggling. It's like, okay, the Big Bang started everything. I'm not arguing that. I'm not a scientist. But what created the bang to begin with that created everything? When you think about it, we're so wired to understand that something has to happen to cause something. Like a bang had to have happened for some kind of a reaction of something to create the bang. How can a big bang, just happen out of nothing? Just bang, now all of a sudden you got atoms, and then they come together and they bind for molecules, and now you got matter, and gravitational pull and light and sound and whatever, and freaking waves, and all this comes together in this cosmic energy, and now all of a sudden you got inanimate objects, and whoa, now you got like freaking sentient, organisms now, and it all evolves and stuff. And we got the answer from the Big Bang. Not that I've read about the Big Bang, but still, what created the Big Bang? So I read a headline talks about, well, there was no start. That's an easier way to explain it. If there's no start, then therefore you don't have to worry about what started it. But it's hard to conceptualize how can something not have a start point and exist with no start, like no creation. It was just there without being created. Because if it had to be created because it's in existence, right? So if it was created, obviously it wasn't there and then was created. So that is a start point. Then how did that happen? That's where you get kind of lost in the rationalization and trying to make sense of it. Is like really a crucial. You're always summing down to a start point. Something started it. The Big Bang. Something started that. And it's hard to come up with like a reasonable answer to that. But it shows how we are, well, at least me, um, about a start point. That's just, I agree in a lot of ways. We're freaking shaped in a lot of our thinking, but we're social beings. So naturally, it's understandable that we can be shaped by influences, social influences, and of course by the institutions like, yeah, our government and religion. And the stigmas is a huge shaper, is probably stigmas. I was overhearing your conversation and, they're talking about somebody that, doesn't work, collects a check. And I get it. People think you should work. You're collecting a check. I don't necessarily believe that. Um, but that is an example. We firmly believe that everybody should be going to work to earn a living and that you shouldn't be collecting a check because you're not working for it. But it's not like our tax dollars is going to not be paid if those people are not collecting a check. We're still going to be paying taxes anyways. So what the hell does it really matter if Joe Shit the Rag Man's collecting a check? If he's not, that money just gets used something else. It's not like you're going to see a bigger check for yourself. So what the hell does it matter? But the stigma is there, and we come from that stigma and judgment because we've been taught that. You have to go to work. If you're not working, there's something wrong with you. What the hell you doing? It doesn't work. He doesn't want to work. That judgment. If you're working, that's your time for somebody else. That's your time for your employer, not for yourself. So, obviously, what freedom do you really have is a good question from all that. Because if you want time off, you have to ask for it. If you have to ask for it, obviously, that implies the lack of freedom. So, you might think, oh, this is all crazy conspiracy theory, but really not. You have a choice. You can ask your employer, and if you take it anyway, they can discipline you. Or, well, if you're an at-will employee, it's even easier. It's a lot easier, and at-will, there's a lot of states that are at-will. Nebraska is. It's a lot easier than you think it is to get fired, so you get the choice. Get fired or ask your employer for the time. So, quite naturally, kind of goes to show how much of your life do you really own? So, yeah, if someone chooses not to work, someone chooses not to work. You know, yeah, that's just their life. Maybe in a way, being poor, you don't have anything, but if you, maybe that person then, like, say if you have a person that's poor, right? And they're more socially there for people. Like, they show up for their family. They listen. Um, they do whatever for their family versus the person that's always going to work all the time, not being present. You know, at the end of the day, work allows people to neglect people. The person who doesn't have a job is not so neglectful. So maybe they're more um, useful in that way, where when what really matters is what they can do because they're not controlled by a job. So at the end of the day, maybe they can feel better at the end of their life and not realize how um, neglectful that they've been towards people that care and love them in the name of having a job to go to. So, yeah, I guess thinking that way helps me obviously not be judgmental in that form. Obviously, I like doing fitness and working 12 hours a day, having an hour and a quarter commute either each way. That's 14 and a half hours a day that I'm engaged in the operations of going to work. Um, I get up at 5 in the morning. I get home typically at like 9:15. I eat, go to bed at 10. Right after I eat my one meal a day, get up and do it all over again. So yeah, it is getting tricky to maintain the workouts during the week, to find that time to do that. So it definitely leads me to, not that I'm thinking about quitting. Obviously, I'm not in a position to. I got like, I think $10,500 left to pay on my vehicle. I did a test. I'm not going to buy another vehicle, but I tested it out to see, and I got approved. I didn't take it because I'm definitely not going down the debt road, and I don't need to replace the vehicle. But because I was approved, that allows me to have, you know, a feeling of security. I think I'm going to get at least 150,000 more miles on my vehicle, and then I'll have a better financial situation, which will then I know I'll be able to continue to go to work and not have to worry about, like, well, when my car dies, oh, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to get into another vehicle loan, for sure. I don't. Um, so that's something. Um, I don't want to have to move offices because obviously, logically, you know, for what I'm paying, I'm obviously going to stay here. Um, I'm not going to move there. The utility bill is just way too high. Um, you know what I mean? It adds like $300 to the rent. And There's a coworker that said, "Oh, I'm going to get a place. It's $1,500 a month. And it's a 1 bedroom." I'm like, that's too expensive for Pittsfield. That's crazy for that area. There's nothing in Pittsfield. It's cold. They're there. Um, let's see some prices. And then, yeah, with the utilities, it's crazy. So you're going to turn that 1,500 after utilities easily to like 1,900 for that place. Let me see here. Of course, the daggone site doesn't work. What the frig, man? All right, let's see. Hopefully, I don't. Um, and that being said, um, I do not speak on behalf of the post office, obviously. I don't speak on behalf of the post office. Man, they designed their stupid site really bad. All right, let's see some prices here. And they don't make the pictures available? What the fuck is wrong with this company? They want to hide it. You can't click it because they're idiots. Huh, that's stupid. Huh, they want to hide the prices. They want to hide your prices. They want to hide the prices. There has to be information on like the typical rent. Hmm. Let me see here. There we go. I just trolled. I just trolled them. My comment. The people they're like, oh man. They're like exactly the people that are all about like the employer um against the employee. Not that I'm a union guy, but the people that are like cheerleaders for the owner class, you know what I mean? And these people are not part of the owner class. They're like cheerleaders. And it's like, I love how people don't pay and then blame the landlord. Well, I understand that, but if the landlord, well, if you have beef with the landlord, you put money aside and then you escrow it and then you run the process. So what I responded is lots of laughs. In any camp, I won't say the name, building are from the 20s. I typically wouldn't have any confidence they'll take care of anything. If you look at some of the worst apartment buildings in Pittsfield, guaranteed it's so and so company. You want to help lower the value of your block, let that company in and save some money and value. I'm gonna throw some um, throw some troll meat there because it's true. I deliver mail, obviously, all over the city. And that company owns a lot of apartment complexes and they're trash buildings. They have mailboxes that are from the 20s that can't hold any mail, junk porches that are destroyed that you can barely walk on. I'm not lying. I almost want to film that crap, dude. It's they're shit houses, and not a joke. Um, and there's a lot of forwards. Why? Because people get kicked out all the time. Um, so therefore, you have a lot of movement and a lot of dirty mail, and it's because they're renting to people that can't afford it, probably because they are charging too much. Hence the reason why I'm looking for monthly rents, and they don't want to list them, obviously, because it's too expensive, but they're crap. You know what I mean? They're trash. The company, it's just like so what, I'm not lying. You know, there's like there's this one street I'm delivering mail in, and there's three multi-apartment buildings for sale in a row. You could basically almost own that block. And that's like, man, it's a bum deal because that company's probably going to be able to buy those three. They're probably thinking about doing so. I don't know any of that, but they're probably thinking about it, obviously, because then you could almost own a block. Then they might be able to even like tear down those buildings and then maybe build one huge building. I mean, having three consecutive big buildings on a street right beside a major street of South Street, right almost downtown. That's really a good location, um, right there. You know what I mean? So obviously, being a big company that has that kind of money, um, yeah, it's not going to raise. um, yeah, that's crazy. Um, yeah, just thinking about that. But yeah, let me look. Someone's going to talk about how much rent they're paying. Let me see. Typical rent, one bedroom. They're so secretive. So secretive. I just don't want to have to spend all the time looking, but it's probably, yeah, yeah, not worth it. Um, I'm in a good situation. My neighbors are good. This, I don't have picky. picky neighbors, which is good. They're not complainers, which is good. I've had neighbors like that, that any kind of sound, you can be doing what I'm doing right now, and they will be like, so you can't really live your life because they need, you know what I mean? I don't have to deal with that, which I'm pretty happy about. Um, Not that I'm the noisiest guy in the world, but you don't have to really freaking worry about that. I don't listen to loud music. Everything I listen to is on the phone or on my laptop, you know. So yeah, yeah. So I can pay my rent, my utilities, um, yeah, my car payment, and my insurance off one check, and that's pretty good. So that gives me one check to save money on, which is pretty good. I'll be right back. All right, just gonna this thing here. All right. Yeah, so that's pretty good. And I've dropped buying the, I've dropped Bitcoin altogether. Um, but I have bought the stable coin, which is the PayPal coin. And that yields 4%. So I put 10% into that. And my PayPal savings, it's not a CD. Gives me 3.8%, not 0.0003, literally 0.03. Because I know my CD that I had that I locked away for 11 months was 0.000. So that's pretty good. You see here it says what I received last month, and I just opened up that savings. Huh. Tax refund. Huh. What the heck? Totally forgot about the tax refund I received. And I received. That was a good thing. It's usually something you forget that you need to pay. And I forgot all about money that I received. On the 8th, I received $551 that I wasn't expecting because I forgot to get the refund from California for my taxes. That is good. $551. that I received. That is good. It says here, I know it. I know I received interest. And it was just from 1 month because I had a hard time opening it up because I didn't have the ID that matched the address. And then they finally just allowed me to open it up. As I tried for a few months and I contacted them and everything. As I saw that interest and I saw that you didn't have to lock the money away. So that's just standing interest. That's now it's here. I saw it. I saw it. It's here. They're kind of making things hard to find. Account info. I have $11 in my reward points from my debit card, which is pretty cool for my groceries because I select the grocery category. And it does include my BJ's purchases. So a lot of that money I buy the PayPal crypto with that, which then earns the 4%. That's pretty cool. So I'm getting myself oh my God, it's too early in the goddamn morning or something. No. All right, come on, buddy. What the hell, dude? I'm still getting mad and sick in here, dude. Oh, I'm not mad, frustrated. I'm trying to look and see. I saw it. I know it's going to tell me. I just have to navigate the site and find it. Statements. I have to log in. I am logged in. I'm logged in. What the hell? I just want to find out that stuff, dude. What the frick are they making it so daggone hard? Okay. My lifetime interest for the month, $7.82 for a month. You know when I had that CD, when I had $1,900 in there for the 11 months, I don't think I gained $7. And I gained that $7.82 in 1 month. It's not too bad. So obviously I'm going to put all the money I can in that and then the 10% into the crypto. And then what I buy, I'm getting the cash back, and I'm going to take that cash back and put it into the crypto. So then I can continually maintain that good amount of interest. That's pretty good. It helps motivate you to keep saving money. So what I'm doing is I've calculated my budget. I know how much I need for the month, and anything other than that, I put into the savings and then the crypto. And then I'm going to hopefully be able to be more disciplined at not spending all my money and have something aside. So when something happens in the car, which I think I've successfully done so far, I had a big major repair on the car. I paid for that and I didn't have to go to zero. I didn't have to apply for credit. So I'm doing pretty good so far. I'm doing pretty good so far. Not bad. I'm excited that I have something in the bank at least. Plus, in the paranoid world of things, maybe having some money in that stable coin protects me if the dollar goes crazy. I'll have something in an alternate form. Yeah, and I guess, when they talked about 3D Atlas, now I've read something, I didn't go too deep in the article, that it crashed into the sun. It's gone all this distance, avoiding all this stuff, yet somehow crashes into the sun, which makes me almost question if that was even real to begin with. I think they might have just made all that crap up, dude, just to try to stir people up and get scared. Trying to get people to be afraid of the world being ending and shit. Creating this idea that the aliens are coming to land on Earth and it's going to be at the end of the month that they're going to arrive. Freaking fear mongering. It's possible. I'm not saying it's true, but it's highly suspect that all of a sudden now it's crashed into the sun somehow. It's traveled all this distance at such incredible speeds to crash into the sun. I don't know. It's kind of weird that they crashed into the sun. I don't know. That's another thing I was thinking about. Like, Kirk being killed. It could be like, oh, it was the lefties that did it. If you're looking at sides and how they want to create more problems, to motivate chaos, to stir up the people that are firm fans of him, what better way than to assassinate him, right? So the very side that he's on could be the side behind his death. It's possible to stir things up more, to try to get people more fired up and willing to take action and be crazy, to try to stir things up. So, the very side that he was on, could be the ones that were behind his demise. It's possible. What better way to stir up a bunch of people and the hate and the anger tend to take a figure that they love and respect and follow and kill them, you can't really say that that's beyond the scope of what political beings are capable of doing. They do evil shit, and so yeah, that's just. And then plus they can be like, oh yeah, some radical leftist did it. Kill two birds with one stone. It's possible. Anything's possible. You have to take everything with a grain of salt. You can't really believe anything that you hear or almost what you see. It's crazy. So yeah, I guess in the grand scheme of things, just I guess, yeah, don't be so global, I guess. Just be more local, I guess, in a way, you know? Like, yeah, I guess if you're a family-owned business who treats your workers well, that's the that's the business you should spend your money on, I guess, because then they don't have any obligation to a shareholder. That would be obviously um, a reason to shop local and have perhaps getting away from all this craziness um, of what's true and what's not true is to be more local in your relations versus getting lost in all this craziness. Um, kind of, yeah, when it comes to individuality, like I don't have a major problem being called by my last name, but I don't really like it. But maybe it's a little bit, being called your last name is depersonalization. It depersonalizes who you are as an individual when you're not called by your first name. You're just Chadwick. It's kind of in the way that you call someone a last name can be kind of derogatory. Not everybody who calls me that name, I take it that way, but there's one supervisor that calls me by my last name in a way that just like irritates me a little. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, it's like I have this one. I don't hate this person. I don't even dislike this person, but man, oh man, every day tries to bait me into being argumentative all the time. So annoying. It's just, I have to put on thick skin, and I don't really have it, and I'm trying not to argue, but I'm always being spoke to in a way that's gonna bait my argumentative bone in my brain all the time. It's like the other day I did a crazy amount of work, double mail for a third of the route, newspapers, and then I had this piece that was huge. Fair story. It was a bigger piece, but yet the route split into threes. And yesterday, that person, I came back to the office and I was like, oh yeah, I knew that I was going to have to help and not a big deal. No tone on that. Wow, I heard it was like half the route. I'm just following the split sheet. And plus, I did that piece yesterday. It's not like I'm trying to get over on anybody. I don't design the split sheet. You know what I mean? What the hell? I didn't get any help. That person got help from two different people. That kind of stuff. All the time. Every freaking day. Just something to try to stir the brain up. Stir the brain up. Get me to argue. Get me to be, argumentative. Because I'm argumentative. But I'm not because I behave in a way that's not. And oftentimes how I avoid being that way is I avoid being put into that situation. That's the way I do it. It's the better way. Because when you're a prideful person, it's hard. Like, drop and go. When you get back to the office, drop and go. Well, you have a lot of mail that's been endorsed, that's missorted, A and K, addressee not known, they were never there, address right, but the people there are like, we don't know this guy. It's A and K.
UTF, unable to forward because they didn't put in a change of address, and they're still getting mail there. And that's whew, some apartments are real bad about that. And that means that the management company, obviously, one of the reasons could be they're renting to people that can't afford the place and they're moving because they're getting kicked out. So if you have like 10 forwards out of one apartment because it expires in a year, that means they're renting that apartment and kicking people out at a high rate. I mean, there shouldn't be in it like an apartment that many out of there. And then you're talking like a lot of that situation in some of these routes. And that's a lot of mail that doesn't belong there but is being sent there. And it's because these landlords are charging too much for what people can afford, and yet then they're allowing them to rent these places. And some people just, move around because they just don't pay rent. Because they just don't pay the rent for whatever reason. So you get a lot of that, and that creates a lot of problems with the mail. Because then you have a lot of mail that's not supposed to go there, and can't remember every single address in the city. So that's warning cards being cased in, having to match the warning card with up to 5 names for an address, and needing it all that work done, and yet matching names to cards. It takes time, and when they want to be like all up on there about time, and they think the route's short when it's not really short at all. And you say like, oh yeah, it's a messy route. And then they're like, well, you should avoid them. You can't really avoid them. There's a lot of movement in there. Obviously. I mean, that's just the thing about, yeah. So you get a lot of that stuff. I even forgot what the hell I started that, but that's kind of the gist about arguments, time frames, stuff like that. That's why, like, certain, like, I texted supervisor. Let me see. Yeah, I had the same piece yesterday. Density plays a part versus land area. I can't make my own splits. Have to go by the book. 38 is bad too. Beginning to 173 Daniels. That's a point. I think, I forget, was I doing half the route or was I doing a third? I think I was doing a third of the route, and it said that that was the first third. And literally, by experience doing that route, because I do it every week, that's easy 70% of the route. And when you look at the case, it's 70% of the route. So naturally, one would logically say, okay, you got 4 rows on a case. Just pick a row, pick a row, pick a row, pick a row. 4s. Okay, you're going to do it 3 ways? Then 1 and a third, 1 and a third. Perfect. So, yeah, logically that follows. But density, having 4 mailboxes per home that are right next to each other versus 1 mailbox in houses that are like 30 yards apart. Yeah, the neighborhood that has a lot of steps but only has 1 box with houses 30 yards or so apart is going to be faster than the one with shorter steps that has 4 mailboxes and the houses are literally maybe 3 yards apart or even connected together. And especially when now you have some gated pathways. But they're thinking, well, it's faster because land area. No, it's not going to be faster because you're not going to be able to finger the mail in time by the time you get to the next box. So it's going to be slower. They don't understand that's not the way that they think of it. They're like, hey, it's shorter, it's more compact, it's easier, it's faster. No, it's not. I can run right through that route with the single box mail because I'm ready for the mail by the time I'm getting there. My rate of pace is faster because of the distance. So I'm walking really fast, box to box. I'm cutting over yards, which you often can't in a city with these homes that have a lot of steps to a porch to the box. Obviously, that's the point that they don't agree with, but that is the truth. And that's why when it comes to their judgment about what's a long route, what's a short route, it's totally skewed because they don't understand that logic. So duplexes are close. Yeah. A house is far apart as one box. It's faster, even though more steps. People say 41 is long. True, stepwise. But if you factor consistent residence, one box per house spaced right, and smoothness of package delivery en route to your park point, that's huge. If you can drop packages on your way to your park point, that makes that route smooth as butter. Some routes are not so easy to do that, which makes it more cumbersome when you have a heavy load of packages. So that's my point. You know, you have a neighborhood that has people moving in and out every other month. You get a lot of dirty mail. And if you're not the absolute regular of the route, you're not going to know them all because so many boxes do not have names on them. Most of them don't. That makes it harder. So you don't quite know who lives there and who don't. And then you have a lot of mail addressed to the address, but not the apartment number. And then on top of that, no name on the damn box. And you don't want to be delivering bad mail. Have fun with that. Oh man, so therefore naturally I'm a little bit annoyed at the commentary about how, oh, well, that person half the route. Well, I had that same piece. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's all right. You know what I mean? Just stuff that, Joseph, don't argue. Try not to argue. Let it go. Let it go. Don't argue. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the freaking world. Yeah, you know, if that 3D atlas was real, I think they would have been making a lot more serious announcements government-wise. Kind of like they do with the COVID stuff. I think there'd be more of an urgent announcements made by the government over the ordeal. Because when you think about what the headlines were talking about, like aliens are coming, um, estimated times like the 29th of November, that, and you know what I mean? That there'd be more of an urgent kind of like, what, you know what I mean? I don't know. There was kind of a mum about it. And I think that makes it kind of suspect. They fabricated so much crap that you know, you don't really know what to believe. You have to have skepticism on anything like that. You can't just believe it. Which then adds to the frustration that they would perhaps lie like that to try to get you to worry. Uh, So, yeah, that's my spiel for the morning over coffee. And I hope that you guys have a good day. And thank you.